Hello everybody and welcome back to the 4.5 Genshin Impact Genius Invocation TCG patch notes. I'm your host Gilded Creations, and today we're going to be covering all the news that we have in 4.5, including all 4 character cards as well as all action cards, which are going to shake up a lot of the decks. So let's dive right in. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for Genius Invocation TCG content, and let's get right on into the news. Fresh out the press, we have Charlotte, who is a Cryo Catalyst from Fontaine, and her biggest draw is going to be her elemental skill, Framing Freezing Point Composition. It costs 3 Cryo dice, and when on your cast, you deal 1 Cryo damage and attach Snappy Silhouette to the target. Snappy Silhouette is a character status in which the end phase, it'll deal 1 Cryo damage to the characters to which it is attached to. If only 1 usage is remaining and the attached character is already affected by Cryo, this instance of damage will be +1, so you'll deal 2 in the end phase, and it starts with 2 usages. This skill and status is incredibly valuable because the target character will be suffering instances of cryo application for 2 rounds. And this is probably most likely going to be best used with aggressive elements like Pyro and Electro summons to capitalize on the end phase application. Additionally, her Elemental Burst, Still Photo Comprehensive Confirmation, deals 1 cryo damage on cast and will heal all your characters for 1 HP and summon 1 new/field. The new/field is going to be just a very simple summon, 1 cryo damage, and heal her active characters for 1 HP. Her talent card, Summonation of Interest. Essentially, if anyone has the Snappy Silhouette status active and your other characters use a normal attack, you'll heal that active character for 2 HP. Her Elemental Burst isn't very strong, and her talent card has way too many conditions to trigger for it to actually be useful, so for the most part, just use her for her skill. Moving on from Charlotte, we're gonna jump to the character in Fontaine, who is the hottest topic of the TCG, Neuvillette. To start with Neuvillette, I'm actually going to go ahead and explain his combat status first before we jump into all the other abilities, and that being the Source Water Droplet. The Source Water Droplet is a combat status can be generated by both his Elemental Skill and Elemental Burst. After Neuvillette is going to use a normal attack, it'll heal the character for 2 HP, and after this, you'll use a Prepare skill, Equitable Judgment. Equitable Judgment is your normal attack, and you prepare it for 1 turn. It'll deal 2 hydro damage, and if the character has at least 6 HP, then deal 1 piercing damage to yourself and gain +1 damage. This will allow Neuvillette to pump out 3 damage normals and also have 2 healing per hit. And to generate these Source Water Droplets, you can use your Elemental Skill, which will deal 2 damage on cast and give you 1 Source Water Droplet, or you can use your Elemental Burst, which will do 2 Hydro damage to the active character and 1 piercing to all opposing characters, and create a Source Water Droplet with 2 usages. Some important things to keep in mind about Neuvillette and be very careful when playing him is that if you have Source Water Droplets attached to you, you must always use a Prepare skill instead of your normal attack. This makes him a very potentially strong hyper carry, but the damage output can be a little slow since you are using majority Prepare skills. Lastly, his talent card, Heir to the Ancient Sea's Authority, which triggers on his normal attack. When your active character is Neuvillette and you equip this card, you'll immediately use the Prepare skill as Water Seeks Equilibrium once. After your character triggers hydro-related reactions, Neuvillette, who has this card equipped, will deal +1 damage from the next 2 instances. This is an extremely free talent card and also free damage, so most likely I will see people using this card. But Fontaine is going to receive a visitor from afar very soon, and where else did that come from but Kirara? Starting off, Kirara's elemental skill, Meowdier Kick. It costs 3 Dendro dice and creates 1 Urgent Neko Parcel and a Shield of Stray Transport. Urgent Neko Parcel is a combat status when Kirara is your active character. After you switch characters, deal 1 Dendro damage and draw 1 card. This Shield of Safe Transport is simply just a 2-point shield. This 2 shield and Dendro damage as well as drawing a card is great for swapping in early setups. Kirara's Elemental Burst, Secret Art, Surprise Dispatch, deals 4 Dendro damage and creates 1 Cast Cardamon. In summary, Cast Cardamon is going to deal 1 Dendro damage for every 2 cards your opponent plays. The status of punishing players for playing action cards is potentially very strong, stopping people from playing multiple artifacts, as well as other artifact helpers such as Boar Princess, Liar Song, etc. Lastly, her talent card simply reduces the dice when swapping. Last but not least, we have Electro Cicin Mage, not unlike the Cryo Cicin Mage, but does have some different conditions in which she can gain her summons. Starting off with her elemental skill, Misty Call, you will simply summon 1 Electro Cicin, no on-demand damage. But this Electro Cicin is very interesting in how it gains its usages. After your opponent plays a total of 3 action cards, this card will gain 1 usage in a maximum of 3 stacks. It's an interesting way to gain extra uses of your summon based on how your opponent plays their action cards, and it's going to be something you're going to want to drop very early into the round. Unfortunately, her Elemental Burst Thundering Shield isn't the strongest. On cast, it'll deal 1 Electro damage and applies Electro to yourself, and creates 1 Electro Cicin Shield and prepares Surging Thunder. The Electro Cicin Shield is a combat status, which based off the amount of Electro Cicins that you had originally, it'll create X amount of shield points. And the very unfortunate part about this burst is going to be the Surging Thunder, as it is a prepare skill that will deal 2 electro damage afterwards. Lastly, Electro Cicin's talent card, Electro Cicin's Gleam, costs 3 dice and you'll immediately use Misty Call. If you have this card equipped and you're on field before you choose your action, if your summons have 3 usages, then your Electro Cicins will immediately deal 1 electro damage. Extremely conditional, way too many factors to make this card actually playable. Let's move on. Now we have our new actions card, starting off with a new weapon, Tome of the Eternal Foe, which will cost us 3 aligned dice. After this character takes damage or is healed, if the character has already been damaged or healed 2 times during this round, then the character's next attack in this round will deal 2 additional damage, and this can only trigger once per round. Very interesting weapon, but of course very, very costly, being 3 aligned dice. You're definitely going to use Wagner's support, and this is intended for Neuvillette, although I don't really foresee this weapon having too much usage, just considering how much it's going to cost inside your deck. Flipping over to another thing from FONTAINE design, the Golden Troupes reward is a 0-cost artifact. In the end phase, to a character to which it is attached to is on standby, this card will gain 1 recompense point with a maximum of 2. When you play a talent card or a character uses an elemental skill, for every recompense point this card has, you will be able to spend 1 less elemental dice. I do wonder if this card is going to be able to compete with the other slots, such as artifacts, Gilded Dream, and all kinds of cards that have been very meta for the past 2 patches. But I personally do like this card a lot, since you can reduce skills and talents. It's kind of like a mini Sumeru City. The Lumenstone Adjuvant costs 2 aligned dice, and after you play an action card, if this card is on field and you have already played 3 action cards during this round, draw 1 card and create 1 Omni dice once per round, and it has 3 usages total. As the effects of drawing another card and gaining 1 Omni dice is pretty huge, but it does take up your support zone, so it may block you from potentially using other support engines like Dunyarzad, Jet, etc. The Fortress of Meropide is a 1 dice cost card, and it's going to be very polarizing to some people. A bit of a long description, so let's dive in. When your active character takes damage or is healed, this card gains 1 prohibition point with a maximum of 4. When the action phase begins, if this card has accumulated 4 prohibition points, consume all 4 of them, and 1 strictly prohibited will be created in your opponent's playing field. Strictly prohibited status means that all event cards played on this side of the field during this round will be invalid. This is an incredibly strong effect to nullify all event cards. For something that is unconditional is a very dangerous thing. As we've seen with the Arcane card passing Judgment, that can only limit it up to 3 times. With this one, oh boy, it's going to last an entire round, and it's going to be very, very potent for decks that can stall, because of course they can absorb the damage, they can stave it off, they can heal it. It'll be very strong for those kind of archetypes. Control Directional Blast is a 1-cost card and can only be played when there's a total of at least 4 cards in your opponent's support zone and summon zone. If you are to play this card, all summons on both sides will lose 1 usage. While this card does work off the assumption that your opponent has things in the support zone and summon zone, the support zone tends to always be full nowadays, so they're more likely than not you'll be able to get this off and effectively have a 1-cost Lament. The new Arcane card, Days of Resistance, Moments of Shattered Dreams. During this round, your targeted character takes -1 damage, a maximum of 4 times. This is a very interesting card, as being able to reduce the damage that your hyper carry takes is super duper valuable, especially during endgames. But it is only -1. You won't be able to completely nullify a nuke. Lastly, some of the balance changes. We have a Gilded Dream change. The elemental dice cost is going to change from 3 unaligned to 3 aligned dice. Additionally, the effect adjustment, when played, generate 1 dice of the same element as the attached character. If you have 3 different elemental types in your party, generate 2 such dice instead. What this means is essentially that you, instead of generating 1 Omni and 1 elemental dice of the character you attached it to, you'll generate 2 of the same. So let's say I put it on Linny, it's going to generate 2 Pyro. This is most definitely a nerf, as not being able to generate an Omni dice for free, being that you used to be able to play Gilded and put on anyone to just fix 1 Omni dice for your active character, makes this significantly weaker in terms of its ability to just kind of fix your dice completely as a card. That's not to say Gilded will go away, but it will be much more strict. You'll be much more reliant on things like Yayoi and Liar Song to make sure that you can get this artifact off. While that was an expected change, we have 2 very unexpected changes from 2 other cards, that being Jade Chamber. Adds an effect, when the action phase begins, if you have no more than 3 cards in your hands, discard this card and create 1 Omni dice. This is a pretty strange condition, as one of the few times where a card will actively destroy itself in terms of your benefit, as creating an Omni Dice is one extra that you really don't suspect after also being itself 0 cost. And following in suit of Jade Chamber's recent buffs, the Knight of Favonius Library's elemental dice cost is going to go down from 1 to 0. So if you're really looking to mitigate those rolls, here you go. In summary, I think this is a very interesting patch. I think there are definitely some duds in terms of the characters, but I think for the most part, Neuvillette will be someone who is very interesting, and Kirara herself is someone who I'm very much looking forward to try. The Gilded changes, while the Gilded Dream changes are going to be something that may cut out a few decks, it's not a dead card, and it will continue to be used, to generate dice for rainbow decks. Lastly, Fortress of Meropide is going to be probably a menace to society, and watch out for stall decks in the coming future. And with that, we reviewed all the cards in 4.5. Thank you all so much for watching. You can leave a like and subscribe for more Genius Invocation TCG content. I'll see you all later. Bye bye.